Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm MK,
And I'm Courtney.
and Courtney, how are you?
I am on top of the world,
Are
probably.
you?
Um, I have been only thinking about Broadway for like a week now. So, um, I went and saw Shucked on Monday,
Okay,
which is the new show with Alex Newell, who
phenomenal.
is also basically my best friend. Please don't sue me for libel. But they come into the bar all the time and they're like super nice.
Wait, so
And
like you actually know them?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I don't know that they remember my name because they asked me my name after a few gin and tonics, but they've definitely talked to me multiple times and like would probably be like, I know this girl's face. Um, Literally the first time I met them was they were at the table and I was like serving or whatever. And she's like, let me tell you, I was like, oh, how is Shucked or whatever, because it had just started like rehearsals when
Yeah.
I met her. And I was like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? She's like, it's like a really funny play, but it's also some of the weirdest lines. And she just started like quoting lines at me from the play. I was like,
I'm
these are
obsessed.
insane. These
I'm
are insane lines. But it was
obsessed.
yeah, it was
I mean, to be fair,
hilarious.
there's a lot of shows that taken out of context. You're like,
No,
what?
it's just as wild when you see it in the show.
Perfect.
She's like, this is my favorite line because it's crazy. And I was like,
No,
okay.
I love that. Well, because like my kids just did Shrek and I have the whole
Uh-huh.
play memorized now, but like there are a couple lines that like out of context of the scene, you're like, what the actual fuck is that play about? So, you know, but that's also
Absolutely.
supposed to be ridiculous also.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I highly recommend Shuck to like literally anyone though, because it's a musical, which I also didn't realize. And the music is so good and the show is so funny.
Yay.
I also learned a little bit about myself this week that I'm not good at running a professional podcast and sounding like a normal person because we were working on Unseen Artists last night and like the first line is just our like tagline or whatever. So it's just we're unseen artists, we're giving the stage to underrepresented voices. But and I said it, I was like so robotic. No one's ever gonna hear it because I'm editing it and changing the intro.
Yeah.
But I was like doing it and I was like, we are unseen artists and we are giving the stage to underrepresented voices. It was like nothing made sense cadence. And I literally had to sit there and I was like, I have to do the Death and Aliens intro just so I can like get a feel of how to
You're like,
like say words.
how do I talk to a microphone? I've been doing this for 2 years.
I know. And then I went to do the intro for our show so I could like get myself back together and I forgot all the words. And I was like, what is happening? I was like, what's life? Can I do anything?
Fantastic.
So it's been an interesting week for me, but very Broadway involved, which is of course my favorite. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I'm thriving. I did very exciting news. Sign my agreement with my first artist. And
Yay.
we cheers and had this delicious salad and then more wine. And it was, oh, I did my first cold pitches for her. Like, oh, so great. So it's
Yay.
been a probably the worst week of my life, but also had a lot of really good highs that came with it. So
Well,
focusing on
that's
those and ignoring the
good.
rest of it.
Fantastic.
Yes. How are you?
Last week, well, so we haven't recorded in 2 weeks because the last
We
week
haven't.
was the worst week of my life because it was tech week for a middle school musical where where two of the four leads did not know their lines.
Which is very convenient for a musical.
Correct. So it was stressful. Our final dress rehearsal ran an hour longer than it was supposed to because it took 3 hours to run through the 60-minute version of Shrek Jr. Um,
Yeah.
and then we opened and it was a fucking great show. I don't know who, I was so mad. I was like, this makes me a horrible person, I know, but I wanted it to be terrible so that they learned a lesson about the amount of work that they put in.
Right.
But then Theater Magic did its fucking thing, and these kids had a brilliant show, and I was pissed off.
You know it always does. You know it always does.
But now they'll never learn that they can't be fucking lazy. It's
You're
so
right.
annoying.
Yeah, it is. I've had a lot of people that like that's just how they live their lives, and I want to punch them in the face.
Yeah. Um, and the tech week was so stressful that my principal officially banned us from doing a spring play. Like a summer spring
Yeah.
play this year. We're not doing one. And she was like genuinely considering not doing a musical next year. And then after the musical ended, she came up on stage and hugged me and Rachel and was like, how are we supposed to not do this next year? And I go, welcome to our fucking lives. Every time you tell us to take a break and prioritize ourselves, we look at these kids and we're like, how are we supposed to not do this next year?
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Well, at least you get a break in the spring.
yeah. So, but then this week was my first week without rehearsals after school. I took 3 naps.
That's so many naps.
I know.
I love that.
And the 2 days I didn't take naps, it's because one day I had a hair appointment after school and one day I had a wax appointment after school. So I still pampered myself instead of
Right. Ugh.
so.
I love that. I
Also,
noticed your hair is brighter than normal.
it is.
It looks nice. I like the color.
Monica was like, oh my God, it's like Ariel red.
It is.
Also, Monica is engaged,
Yay! Congrats, Monica.
which I did share on the Death and Aliens
Yes.
Instagram when it happened. But Monica is the only person on the history of the planet who threw her own engagement party a week and a half after she got engaged.
But look, you gotta celebrate all the
But
time.
I texted her and I was like, listen, this is the only night of the week that I am not booked. And I started the morning by crying about how tired I was with absolutely no cause because I went to bed on time. So I don't think I'm coming to the party tonight. And she goes, honestly, that's fine because you don't want to hang out with a bunch of literal children. And I was like, at least you understand.
Bless her heart.
So it looked like a success. I did not go.
It did. Yep. Pictures look great. Pictures look great.
We are
So
very proud
thrilled for
and
her.
thrilled for her, yeah. I mean, only mostly thrilled that everyone I know is getting engaged and not me, but like
Your time is coming. In the meanwhile, hang out with me in
he's gonna
unmarried
listen to
land.
this. Yeah, he's gonna listen to this and be like, oh, I told you. Like, whatever. It's fine.
Just think about how great it is over here in unmarried land. I'm just living my best life in Broadway. And so just like bask in that until you're married.
Okay. Fair.
Because
I will
like
try.
you know it's coming. You know you're gonna get married.
Right.
So it's not like you're
It's
not gonna
not
get there.
right. It's not like a year ago when I was making a podcast being like, I'm never gonna be in love. I hate everyone.
Exactly. Yes. Not like last year when the world was ending.
Yeah.
Just in a different way. It's ending now, but it's fine. Um, but yeah, and also day of recording because we haven't said it because we talked about it for like 20 minutes before we got on, but it is Mary Kate's birthday.
It's my birthday today. Courtney had to change recording schedule and she was like, oh wait, can you record on Saturday? That's your birthday. And I was like, what the fuck else am I gonna do? I'm already going to work tonight.
And then I was like,
Um,
yay, I get to see you on your birthday at least then.
yeah, because it's 31, so it's like last year everybody like did all this like crazy go all out stuff for my birthday because it was 30, and this year everybody's like, oh, have a good birthday. And I was like, honestly, I like that vibe so much better.
No, celebrate every year. My mom always tells me, she's like, you're too old to be having all of these crazy birthday plans. And I was like, I am not married. I am not having kids. I am done with school. I am in my career, although I did start my own business. But regardless, I'm like, my birthday is my day. That is the only one I get all
Okay,
year.
but to be fair, I am very much about like celebrating my birthday. It just doesn't have to be the day of. Like I
Oh,
bought
yeah.
I bought my tickets for Pittsburgh Comic-Con next weekend and going to Pittsburgh and going and meeting Richard Dean Anderson and like spending the
Ugh,
day in Pennsylvania with Dan. Like that is my birthday for me.
yeah. See,
So,
I need my birthday to be day of, but this year it won't be because there's a conference in New Jersey and that I'll be at. But it's fine. It's fine. I won't make a big
no,
deal about it.
no,
Probably.
my
I definitely will, but it's fine.
next weekend is not my birthday, but I will be absolutely acting like it's my fucking birthday when I
Yeah.
meet.
No, it's your birthday.
Yeah, so it's
Love
my,
that.
you know what I love?
Oh my
It's
God.
being
I don't
spiritually
even know.
guided.
Tell me some other things you like.
Okay. Oh, Dan's mom just texted me happy birthday.
Oh,
What a
such a gem.
cutie. She is the best. Um, Also, I have this one sixth grader who like tries to text me all the time via Google Messenger chat, like Google chat in his school email, and it's adorable. Um, because like yesterday he invited me to his black belt ceremony for his taekwondo, but I had to work at Shays, so I couldn't go, and I was really sad about it. But then he texted me this morning with a picture of the fact that he earned like 1,000 XP on Duolingo yesterday and got his black belt at Taekwondo. And I was like, you had the best Friday. Like, what a what a day. Um, and but today he's coming to see the show that I'm working at Shays, and he's really excited because the
Oh,
show I'm working at Shays is Murder on the Orient Express, and his class just read And Then There Were None. So he's never read this book, but he knows how Agatha Christie works now because of reading it with me, and so he's really excited that I'll be at work when he's seeing the show.
very exciting. I was supposed to see Murder on the Orient Express because it's coming to Paper Mill Playhouse. Did not realize these are, I learn new things about theater every day.
Yeah,
So I'm used to when I'm not on Broadway or off
yeah,
Broadway, I'm going out to Long Island. And so
yeah,
this theater's in Jersey. And so Noelle and her dad have season tickets, and they're like, these are the days we're going. Like, just grab a ticket or whatever and come with us. It's like, great, no problem. It's like last minute, I'm trying to buy a ticket for Hercules, $300.
yeah,
Absolutely not. So I was like, great, I'll look for the rest of the season because it's the first show of the season. I was like, I'll go ahead and buy those tickets like months in advance. If something comes up, like whatever, I'll throw like, my money away or whatever. They're still $200. Like, I
well,
was like, this is insane.
because Paper Mill is basically an out of town tryouts for Broadway. So the shows are like that quality, but they're super, super,
Right.
super limited runs and like super unlike they're not at they have to make back enough money to be able to afford to take it to Broadway if it
Right.
succeeds. So the tickets are fucking expensive.
Yeah, and no one told me. So now I'm not going to see it because I do not have
Which is funny
$300
because
to
I was
spend on
just
it.
going to ask you if you ended up making it to Hercules or not because I saw that it
Did
closed.
not. Yeah, it was no, it wasn't even expensive. It was sold out for the like
Oh,
remainder
I
of the
believe it.
run
I believe
when I
it.
went to buy tickets. It was I looked at the rest of it because they're having Rent, Murder on the Orient Express, and I don't remember what the other one is, but they're having one more. And they were all like over $200 for tickets. And I was like, that's that. Try again next year.
I
Like,
mean, to be fair, I'm trying to think what is the math on the tickets that I bought for my theater. I think obviously it's not
yeah.
anything like
I mean, I
that,
don't pay
but
$200 to go see a Broadway show. Like, that's my thing. It's like I do lottery or rush or box office. So I think the most I've ever spent for a Broadway ticket was $70.
what did my phone just do? Man, that is not what I asked for. Um, can I? Yes, that is me. Sorry, I'm trying to get to the point where I can look at my like invoices on this stupid the ticket app. So my here we go. The Shays app has a direct link to Ticketmaster. So like I'm
Mm-hmm.
in the Shays app, I'm in the Shays page, but I'm technically in Ticketmaster, so it's stupid because I hate
Right.
Ticketmaster.
Yes. Ugh, preach. Don't we all?
Um, so what's the math on that? Okay, so because I paid it in installments, so I forgot how much the tickets actually cost.
Yeah.
60 divided by two. by 7. Yeah, I ended up paying like $83 per ticket,
which is still not like terrible. Like
which is
still
not
more than
terrible.
I pay
It's
for Broadway, but it's
right. It's
not
not
terrible.
terrible. It's not terrible at all, but it's also like national tours in a local theater, and
Yeah,
it's a Wednesday night. So it's not even
right. Which is the
like
cheapest night.
the cheapest night. So because
Right.
Tuesdays are opening and
Hmm.
then the rest is the weekend. So Wednesdays,
We've been having a lot of Thursday 6:30 openings,
that's
which
but
is
that which is it's
new for
that
us.
that is new.
Is
But
that
when
common? Okay. I was like, I don't remember
no,
that being a
that's
thing last
no, that's
season.
new. But for national tours, Tuesdays are opening because
Mm,
Mondays are dark travel days.
right.
So they come in, they load, and then they do the week, and then they move, and then they do the week. So they're almost
That
always
makes sense.
yeah. So they almost always open on Tuesdays. Weirdly, sometimes well, I think Hamilton last year had a Sunday opening and then a Monday dark day, and I was like, what the fuck are you doing?
Where did you come from? Yeah.
But
Yeah, no,
so
I've been
Tuesdays are the openings, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday are the weekend rates. So Wednesday, Thursday
mhm.
are the cheapest nights, and I'm
Oh,
in like balcony. I'm in the balcony, like I'm not in a front row of anything. I'm not in bad seats at all, but I'm not in orchestra and I'm not in a front row or
right.
anything, and it's still $85 a ticket.
Yeah.
So having something that's an out of town tryout in Jersey have $200 tickets is not shocking to me. It's also not something I'd be willing to pay. I literally,
No.
we have to renew our season tickets soon. If like, well, we don't have to, I could wait, but the season announcement is coming soon. And so I was talking to Dan about renewing season tickets. And I was like, if I can find something that is at a comparable ticket price with more legroom, I will do it. If I have to pay $1,000 more for you to be able to fit your knees between the seats, I'm so sorry, but you're just gonna have to tough it out. Because well,
Absolutely.
because Shades was built in the 1920s, so the leg room is atrocious. And
Like a
Dan
ton of
is
Broadway theaters, yeah.
yeah, and Dan is not a short man
Right.
or a tiny man.
Hmm.
So I was like, I
Yeah.
want to help you,
But
but
yeah, I think I'm just gonna get season tickets to Paper Mill next year.
okay.
Once it
Season
comes back
tickets.
around,
Well,
'cause I think
that's the other thing is I'm paying $85 a ticket for the
with
shows,
season.
but they're a season package, which means they're cheaper than if
Right.
I try to buy those seats right out.
Sure. Right. Yeah. Well,
All right, now that we've
I
uh whatever.
talked more about Broadway and given me
Yes.
time to get myself together.
Yes.
Let me tell you some spiritual guidance.
Beautiful.
My whole mindset has changed. I don't even have the energy to do certain things or be around certain people anymore. I'm at a point in my life now where if something feels like it's draining my energy or fighting with my peace of mind, I'm not dealing with it at all. I'll walk away from that shit in a heartbeat.
Yes. That is for sure where I'm at. No
No
new
time. No
friends.
time for nonsense. No new friends.
That's not true. I make new friends all the time. I just don't necessarily
Me too. It's fine.
I no. The difference is people say no new friends and they're like, let you have to keep the old friends. But no, the difference is fuck your old friends if they're not good friends.
Right. Absolutely.
I think like I have like 3 people that I consistently talk to that I've been friends with for more than 3 years. Yes, you are one of them. And then Jill, obviously, and then Mandy. But like, and that's not like I don't have people like I have like Sarah and the other Disney girls that I like am still friends with, but like I don't consistently talk to them all of the time.
Yeah.
But
I
like
would say my
consist
consistent ones would be Caitlin, Rachel, probably Tyler and Zach, and they're the ones I talk to. And
yeah.
I don't even talk to Tyler that much anymore, but but well enough to
Yeah, no, like
keep
I'm
him in the
sure
loop, you know, more
yeah,
often than other people.
right. But like if I look at my BFFs on Snapchat, um, which is clearly how you judge
Not
if
it.
someone's actually your friend. No, you're not, and my best friend's on Snapchat. But to be fair, that's just
Oh.
because you like will disappear from Snapchat for a couple days at a time and then come back and
Yeah, I
it ruins everyone's
lives. I know. I haven't been on Snapchat in like a week and a half.
my best friends on Snapchat are Jill, Ruthie and Teresa, who are I teach with, my
Mhm.
brother, my friend Danielle, who taught at my school last year, this girl Sierra, who was one of my brother's best friends in elementary school and is probably only in my best friends because she's the only person who uses Snapchat more than any other social media ever. And then Mandy and Cody, Monica's fiance.
Sure, yeah,
Yeah.
that
So,
tracks.
right. I have other people that I talk to daily, but like those are the people who, but then again, that's just because those are the people who communicate with Snapchat. Like,
Yeah.
because like you and Monica are not in my best friends on Snapchat, but that is
Monica used to be in mine, and then she started kind of falling off the grid on Snapchat. Then I started
she
falling off the grid on Snapchat.
right.
It
That's
was
why
just not well.
I was like, Monica, she went to tell me something. I go, I already know. She goes, how do you know? I go, because I talked to your feet. I talked to Cody. This was before they were engaged. I was like, because I talk to your boyfriend every day. She was like, what do you mean? I go, he has not ruined our our snap streak on Snapchat. I'm like, you. And she was like, oh. But
I get it. I get it, Monica. It's totally fine.
speaking of
But
things
now
that
that
are
we've
only, I was like, speaking about
ignored
things that
this,
are only fine. Um, Yeah, it's really just because I didn't want to talk about this episode. I think that's
I
why we're
know.
of so we were talking about Stargate SG-1 season 3, episode 8, called Demons.
I would like to believe and guess that this is the lowest rated episode of the season.
It sure is. That was rated
Ah,
6.9 stars, and it is in fact the lowest rated of the season.
great. That is
I did
great news
I
for
did warn
us.
you that there was one that was under 7 and you found
This is
it.
it. Found it.
um It premiered on August 13th, 1999. The number one song, book, and movie are all the same as last week. Um, there was not a ton of things that happened that day, but it was the opening day of the 32nd annual San Diego Comic Con, which then made me realize that
Love
if the
that.
32nd Comic Con was in 1999, holy shit, there's been a lot of San Diego Comic Cons. And then the other thing that I found was that it was the celebration of Hitchcock's 100th birthday. And then I was like, no way. And then I looked and yes, he was in fact born on August 13th, 1899.
Day
Happy
in
100th birthday to Hitchcock.
1999 on
Yeah.
August 13th.
Yeah. But also my time hop this morning told me a fact that I didn't know was a fact. Today, on my 31st birthday, is also the 40th birthday of the Outsiders movie. And how did I not know for 31 years that the Outsiders movie had the same birthday as me?
I do not know. That does not sound very like you
And
to
that
not know
is
that.
the best movie.
I haven't seen it, but I believe you. But I also haven't read the book. So, I don't know. It's on my list.
I told my sixth graders that I got 2 new books for them for next year, and they were like, "But we're still going to read The Outsiders, right?" And I was like, "Yes, we'll still read The Outsiders." Calm yourselves.
Bless their hearts.
It was
I will
written.
read it one day.
You should. It's not a very long book, so it
I
won't take
know.
you long. It was directed by Peter DeLuise. It was written by Carl Binder, so that's a new name. Carl is more prominently known as a producer than a writer, but he has been involved in Stargate in both aspects. Prior to this, not as a writer, but he's
Producer,
he
whatnot, yeah.
yeah, this is his first episode, but and he writes a couple for these, but then when we get into Atlantis and Universe, he's a lot more around.
Does he
Um,
do anything else? His name sounds familiar.
no, actually. So
Oh, okay.
before Stargate, he wrote a few TV one-offs. But his most recent writing credit was in 2019. He kind of fell off the face of the earth
Hmm.
pre-COVID. So like I don't even know. But the most important thing that I found on his IMDb was that he was part of the writing team for Pocahontas 2: Journey to a New World.
That's why he has fallen off the face of the earth in 2019. Bless his heart. That just everything makes sense. Everything makes
The
sense now.
film editing was by Rick Martin again. And the guest star we are talking about is AC Peterson, who played the Cannon.
Can you spell that name? The
Um,
first
the
one.
letter, the letter A and the letter C.
Oh, okay. Got you.
Yeah. So, his name is Alan, I believe, but he goes just by his initials now.
Got it. Got it.
A.C. Peterson. He is known for Narc, Shanghai Noon, Shooter, and Agent Cody Banks.
Oh,
Um,
the best.
but he was also in just about everything that you and I have ever watched. He was a guest on X-Files, American Gods, Smallville, Schitt's Creek, Andromeda, The Outer Limits, and about 120 other credits. But most importantly, he was in an episode of Hemlock Grove.
Ooh, which one?
I don't remember. When I saw his face, I recognized that he was one of the like random people who I think like worked for one of the, I think it was in season 3 in that weird cult
That's what I
thing,
was thinking. Yeah.
and who got immediately killed.
Right.
But
I
yeah,
definitely recognized his face when I saw him
yeah,
and did not know why.
yeah. So I think he was in the cult in season 3 of Hemlock Grove. He also teaches or taught at least acting at the Vancouver Film School in Vancouver, British Columbia. Yeah.
Random.
There is a reason why he was the guest star and not the person who you probably would have assumed based on the episode would be the guest star, and we will get to that in the trivia.
Wait, but the guy, so the canon was the
Yeah.
guy who was like, everyone's a sacrifice, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's what I would have expected. Is that
Yeah.
case you're talking
Oh,
about?
no, no. Simon is who I would have thought you would expect.
The
The one
little
who was,
guy that was with Mary.
yeah, who was helping them for the whole episode. He is actually credited higher than the canon, but
Got it. We'll
but
talk
there
about
is
it in the future
we'll talk about
times.
it. Yes.
Got it. Got it.
So we start with the team arriving on a planet where Jack seems weirdly upset to see trees. The dialogue
Yeah.
in this episode was not only was the episode weird, the dialogue was just strange. And I could have told you even without knowing that there was a new writer, that it was a new writer, because none of the characters weren't themselves, but they were all also just a little off.
They were all very bland versions of
Yeah,
themselves,
like
though.
it wasn't people who have spent a ton of time with these characters' dialogue,
Right.
clearly. Um, which is probably why I don't think he writes a ton for this, and then he writes more for the other shows because I think he's not a bad writer in terms of story. Like the actual, if you told me the plot of the plot of this without actually watching the episode, I would be like, that's a fascinating concept.
Like 2 minutes into this episode, I thought we were going to have an excellent episode.
Mm-hmm.
And then minute
Well,
3 happened, and I was like, never mind.
I'll tell you when we get there, I'll tell you the moment that I was like, this is brilliant. And then it never quite got to what I wanted it to be. So yeah. But so part of I think the reason why it was so poorly rated is because he just wasn't comfortable with the characters the way our consistent writers
Right.
are. So again, Jack's weirdly upset about trees. Um, so then they're going to a village that the UAV found, and they're like trying to figure out.
But I want to note before they get into this village, they're talking, and one of the first things they talk about is Christianity.
Well, I'm
And
not there yet.
are we not talking about that yet?
I'm
Okay,
saying
okay, go ahead.
no, no, no. I'm just saying that they're here on this planet because of the UAV
Got
found
it.
a village, and they're going to try to find that village, and they don't know where to go. But then Teal'c is like, "How about this path that is clearly walked?"
Right.
Um, so they're like, "Oh, so this village must be actively using the Stargate." So they go and they find the village, and it looks like a medieval like church or castle.
Mm-hmm.
And Jack is like, "Why is that important?" And this is when we have this conversation about Christianity because so Daniel explains that all of the other civilizations that have existed in these Stargate planets have been places where the Goa'uld were able to emulate a god from the
Mm-hmm.
culture in order to convince the people to go with them, basically.
Right.
And Teal'c is like, that doesn't make sense to me because I've read the Bible And I don't think that Teal'c's just casually like, yeah, I read the Bible. Why wouldn't I? I'm studying your people. Like, that makes sense.
Right.
And Teal'c's like, I've read the Bible and I don't think that Goa'uld would be able to, what did he say? Would be able to show the compassion and benevolence of your God. And Jack is confused that Teal'c has read the Bible. And he's like, why have you not? And he goes, I'm listening to it on audiobook. Don't spoil the ending.
Yeah. But also, like, this is the first time we've really like directly addressed Christianity, because we had like what was like the second episode of this whole series, like
Yeah, where that one
we
guy
had
was
like
like,
a brief mention of Christianity, and everybody else just
mhm.
kind of like didn't acknowledge it, and then we never mentioned it again, and it was like always
And
kind of an underlying thing.
yeah. So I think, and that this is the moment where I was like, this episode's going to be fascinating because I think it's really interesting that all of these other cultures that are being like ripped off by the Goa'uld are polytheistic cultures where they can take a single god and that there are gods with different aspects to them. So you can be quote unquote evil and still fit into the pantheon.
Right.
Whereas monotheistic religions have a very hard time having their gods copied, because you have to have this one person that has all of the aspects of God, which is not possible. And that's why so many cult
No
leaders have,
idols.
there are no idols, there's nothing to worship. And that's why like cult leaders have to like basically emulate like preachers or say that someone is speaking to them. They can't like become the God until you're already deep into it. And so I was like that this is going to be absolutely fascinating.
Right. I
And
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought.
Daniel was like, and Daniel was in the same place. He was like, we have never seen this. Like Christianity is so hard to copy. Like I want to know what the Goa'uld have done to do this. And I think the whole SG team and you and I were all on the same page of, oh my God, where is this going? And truthfully, what they did with it as a storyline, like
Right.
if you had given me the like outline of this is what I think the episode should be and this is the plot points, I would have been like
Yes.
brilliant.
Done.
The execution I am less happy with.
So bland. The entire
Because,
episode was just bland.
yes, and because there was also, and we'll get to it later, there was a moment that I was like, this could have been a complete 180 on the script, and they did not take it the way I wanted them to take it, and it was upsetting. Um, but so they're also, this is the most advanced culture in terms of Earth because it's the other thing is they're saying most of these cultures have been taken from planet Earth in what's it called? Ancient. That's the word that just completely left my brain. In like ancient,
It's like, what are you trying to say?
the word ancient literally disappeared from my head. In like
Yeah, it
ancient times, like
happens.
you're talking like ancient Egypt, the Viking culture, like these cultures that are pre-civil, like
Yeah.
pre-modern civilization.
And
And
like
now we're
pre-Middle Ages. He said it was like pre-Chaucer. And I was like, that feels
yeah.
like a very
And so
long
now
time ago.
yeah, but this is I mean, but the Dark Ages pre-Chaucer is still
Yeah,
like post um the definition of Europe as a continent and kingdoms
it's
and stuff.
true.
So like that is the most modern culture that has been taken so far. So all of this is fascinating until
Hmm.
it's not. Um,
Right. Correct.
so they find the village and the people immediately like scatter and hide. And then Jack finds a plaque and I had just happened to pause it to like take a note and I looked at the screen and it was paused on the plaque. So I just read it and wrote down what it said, like not word for word, but wrote what it
Right.
said. And then when I unpaused it, Jack was like, is this English? And so Daniel looked at it and was like, well, yeah, it's Middle English. And I was like, so I wanted to ask you, could you read it? And Jack is just stupid. Or did my quick skipping, like, or did my quick ability
Mhm.
to read the not English words just because I'm a weird English teacher?
No, I did not read it, but I could read it because I did try. I was like, oh, what is this language? And then I was like, oh, it's English. Like,
Okay, good. Well,
but I didn't like
because
pause it to read it or anything. So I don't
oh,
know what
because I
it's.
had it paused and I read it. Like I not only could read it, I knew it was pre-Chaucer Middle English and that what the words that I couldn't read, what they actually were. But again, I teach English and have
Right.
studied the Canterbury Tales, so knowing
Yeah.
pre-Chaucer Middle English is a thing that I was like, I'm trying to decide if Jack is extra stupid in this episode or if that's just a I'm too educated.
I mean, I am like pretty good with Chaucer, so like maybe that has something to do with it, but also
Right.
like I didn't second guess that it was English. And then he was like, "What language is this?" And I was like, "It's English." Like I even though I didn't read it, so I don't know, maybe there were words that I wouldn't have like known if I
Well,
read it
because
all, but it definitely
there were words that were not that were like truly old English on there, so like
right.
you couldn't really read them as words. But I was like,
Yeah, but I definitely knew what we were starting with. Like I could tell you this is not ancient Egyptian, like what we're used to seeing.
correct.
So,
So
you know,
the plaque is asking Jesus to show mercy to his people who are about to be delivered to the devil, and it is a part of the Catholic prayer for suffering souls.
got it.
So Daniel translates it, and then Jack turns around and finds a girl chained up to like this weird thing in the middle of the town when everyone left her outside, and then we get the credits.
So I don't know if you're gonna talk about this, so cut me off if you are. But
No,
her the choice for her name to be Mary, is
I'm
that
I
addressed at any point? Because I feel
no
like
no.
okay, I feel like that was definitely like a the writers were like, we're naming her, or the like whoever names the
Mhm.
characters were like, we're naming her Mary because it's biblical. She's,
Well,
all this.
and more so than that, when Jesus died, the last thing he said on the cross, one of the last things he said on the cross was asking some of his disciples to take care of his mother after he died.
Right.
And the other main character's name is Simon, which is the actual name of St. Peter.
Mm-hmm.
And Simon tells them that when her family died, they left her to him to take care of. So it was absolutely deliberate in a way that was like
Right.
very biblical, but never really explained because if you aren't already on that level biblically, it's not important to the story technically.
I guess
But
that's true. And I know like I felt like the other things that they mentioned that were also biblical or historical, they at least gave you some context in this. They just kind of
mhm.
threw in there. And I was like, I really feel like you wanted this to make a mark, and then it didn't if you weren't
So
like
right. Well,
thinking
so
along the
that's
lines of me and you.
interestingly, I actually just finished teaching a lesson on illusion, like a big unit on illusion with some
Mm-hmm.
of my sixth graders. And the importance of illusion is that if you understand the reference, it enhances the story. If you don't
Mm-hmm.
understand the reference, it can't take away from the story. That's what's important
Yeah.
about illusion. So their names being Simon and Mary, to us who have studied the Bible, we're like, oh, the compassion, the innocence, like that, it all checks out. If you don't know the Bible, it doesn't change who they are as characters in the story
Yeah.
because those traits are clear in other ways.
Yeah. And I think that's fair. I think I just wanted more from this episode. So I'm like, you got to give us something. Like, tell it. Like,
Right.
you're going to walk us through all these plot points that are good plot points and then not do anything with them. Like,
and again,
so,
like I thought we're still in the point where at this point in the episode, I still thought I had potential.
right. Me too. Me
So
too.
honestly, I think I decided it didn't have potential when the canon arrived. Not that he was a bad character, but
Mm-hmm.
because they just could have done so much more with that. And then I was like, oh, they're really just not going to follow through on any of this.
Right. And like, he was such a, like, what is the word I'm looking for? Like, he didn't fit into the episode because his character did have more personality and was a little more intense, whereas the rest of them, even in scenes that should have been a bit more intense. They weren't, except for him. And it's
Well,
like,
well, and I think the problem is, and I actually think that Simon's character was really well done too. I think the problem
yeah,
really was that the core four were not well done, and so I didn't
yeah,
believe everything that they were going through. If they had
yeah,
had, if
absolutely.
they had had two writers, like if Carl Binder had written the story, and then they had had a teleplay writer who was more familiar with the characters, I think this could have been an 8, 9 star episode.
It probably
But
would have been one of my favorites of the season.
because
Yep.
the story is amazing, but that lack of chemistry with the core four was so detrimental
Mm-hmm.
to the experience of this episode.
Right.
So I genuinely think that that is why, because I think that even the hint of the Simon and Mary being
Mm-hmm.
characters like in the Bible, even if they had never explained it, if I had just believed the episode more, I could have been on board
Yes.
with that.
I think
Um,
that, and that's what I was trying to say earlier, is like, I think I would have been okay with that as just an illusion piece, because there were so many more like bolder plot points that happened, and
mhm,
like nothing went anywhere, so I needed something to go somewhere. And
right,
so,
right. So as they're trying to help this girl off of, at this point we don't know her name yet, but Mary, as they're trying to help Mary off of this thing in the middle of the church or churchyard, this guy runs out and begs them to like keep her safe and not sacrifice her because he is convinced that they are demons.
yeah.
And we find out that this man is named Simon. Um, and so Simon is convinced that the SG team are demons because there is someone who comes through the gate and takes sacrifices. Um, and Jack finally convinces Simon to let them help Mary, and they get her back inside Simon's house. And it turns out she has chicken pox.
Poor sweet baby angel.
And so Simon is like, yeah, but the elders are going to do a cleansing ritual tonight. And the cleansing ritual is called tray panning. And Daniel's like, oh, that's just drilling a hole in their head to release the evil spirits. And Jack
But
is
like, so
like,
casual. Like, no one's overreacting like they should be, except me. I'm overreacting, but no one else is.
well, I'll get to that later too. That's in my trivia. So,
Okay.
but yeah, Jack is he's not overreacting. He's reacting. This is one of the only moments that I believed Jack was Jack because he was just like, great, fantastic. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's just drill a fucking hole in somebody's head. That
Yeah.
sounds reasonable. Um, then they hear a villager announcing that the demon is there. And so they're peeking out the window, and an Unas just walks into the village and announces that his master Satan needs 5 more sacrifices.
Yeah.
And
I will say this scene was one of the better done ones, with like
right.
Jack's reaction to the Unas and everything.
Well, and Jack's reaction and Teal'c and Sam explaining what was actually going on by
Mm-hmm.
picking up pieces of things. So
Yeah.
Teal'c being like, well, no, Unas is a race. We didn't kill Unas. And Jack was like, but Uno won. And
One.
Teal'c's
Yeah.
like,
I was like,
not how that fucking works.
I was like, same, Jack. I also thought there was one, and there is not.
Correct.
So,
And then they're like, Satan, oh, Sokar. That makes sense. He's getting hosts. And they like put all the pieces together of what the actual legitimate thing that is happening is. And this Unas is working for Sokar to scare people into becoming sacrifices for the devil, but really just becoming Goa'uld host. So they tell Simon that the Unas is not a demon and they're not afraid of him. And then Simon is like, oh, I knew you were sent from God. I prayed and now you are here. Beautiful.
yeah.
So Jack starts planning an attack, but Teal'c and Sam are a little bit more apprehensive. They're like, I don't know if that's really how that's going to work. The last time we killed an Unas, we had Thor's hammer.
Thor's hammer. Yeah.
So like, little bit more powerful weapon. Also, that Unas had been locked in a dungeon and starved for like a hella long time. This guy's clearly thriving. I
Also,
don't
we
know.
destroyed the one tool to get back Charé that doesn't exist anymore, and
Yeah.
it's fine.
And they're like, also, if we kill him, what is Sokar gonna do to the people of this village as revenge? So they're like, eh. Then the canon returns to the village. And Simon is like, well, that the canon is the spiritual leader, so the canon gets to choose who is sacrificed and who is possessed by the devil. And that is only icky because that's for sure how medieval villages actually worked. Um,
Absolutely.
and then the canon like flips out on Simon and for like letting these people come into his home and says that Teal'c bears the mark of the devil, and so all of SG must have damned souls.
Well, we've made it
Yep,
to the Middle Ages.
correct. That's none of this is surprising.
Yep.
Um, so they appeal to the canon that they can do defeat the Unas, and he's like, "Nah, fam, you're unclean. That's not how this works." And he presses like a weird button on his clearly gold tech ring that he is wearing, and purple lightning appears from the sky and knocks them all out. And I was like, "Where the fuck is this episode going?" Fun fact: nowhere.
I know. I was like, are the
I
Asgards nearby?
I
Like, what
wanted
is
I wanted
happening?
so much more about that ring. I wanted to know everything
I know.
and it never happened. Um so they wake up after this lightning bolt and they're all locked in a cage and they're all disarmed and Teal'c is missing. And Simon is still like fighting with the cannon to try to like get them out and it's not really working. And the canon announces to the village that Hilk is being put to the tests to see if he is evil. So basically, we're going to do some medieval witch tests on Teal'c.
Yep.
And the
And we've made
first,
it to the Salem witch trials.
correct, which also the Middle Ages. That's when
Right.
that was happening, and that they
Just,
did that there.
yeah.
Yeah. So the first test that they're going to put him through is for the mark of the devil. And Daniel's like, oh shit. And they're
Mm-hmm.
like, why? And he was like, well, in this test, there is a mark on the skin that they believe is put there by the devil himself that is insensitive to pain. We all know that because of the burning of the gold into Teal'c's forehead, he can no longer feel things where the gold is
The
in his
Marcus. Yeah.
forehead. So that's not good. So
Mm-mm.
they put a hot fucking coal poker thing on his forehead and he does not react at all because he can't feel it.
But also, like, thank
And
God that he can't feel it, even though it's
correct.
like,
Also correct.
damning him. But
And so they're like, ah, yes, he is evil. So then we're like, we're going to take him to do the witch water test, which everyone knows the witch water test. If they drop your body into a lake with a rock and you sink, you're innocent but dead. And if you float, you're guilty. So they kill you.
kill you.
It's a lovely, lovely thing that used to be part of the justice system in European and American colonies. It was great. Um,
Yeah.
so Teal'c sinks, obviously, and
Right.
the canon's like, well, this is God's will.
And they don't react. No one freaks out. They're just like, yep, he's dead now. That's
To be
sad.
fair, while he's drowning, they do scream and freak out, but then
But not
he's
as much as I
dead.
feel like they should be.
Yeah, yeah, it's a little. I, to be fair, I knew that Teal'c was not dead.
I mean, I know he's in more episodes, so I knew he wasn't dead. But like, they didn't know. I mean,
Right. But to
he
be
is, but
fair,
like, they didn't know at the time.
I knew that Teal'c was not dead. I thought that you would probably assume he wasn't going to actually be dead, but based on what they've done with some of the other things where characters have died but then come back in other
Mm-hmm.
episodes as different things, I thought there was a possibility that you would think that he could actually be dead just because like Kowalski died in the second episode and he's been in 15
Right.
episodes. So
Right.
like
I did for a second. I was like, I'm not sure how they're coming out of this. And so the only thing that could happen is if like there's a twin of Tilk somewhere, because
right.
Christopher Judge is still a character in the show. So I was
Well,
like,
and to be fair,
maybe
Christopher
that could
Judge is
happen.
to be fair, Christopher Judge is also the Unas in this episode, so like it doesn't. So Christopher Judge appearing in that many episodes could not be Teal'c at all, actually. But their reaction made me also feel nothing. Like I was like, even if I didn't already know, I wouldn't care because they don't care.
Right. I was like, this is insane.
Yeah. So there's some nuns praying over Teal'c's body, and the canon is like, well, Teal'c's soul is clean because he drowned and was innocent, so we will give him a Christian burial, and that now that proves that you guys have clean souls also, and you can go home. Just casually.
Right.
And they're like, they accuse him of abusing his power with his ring, and then he says that it's only to abide by God's will because he has to make sacrifices, otherwise the demon would destroy the whole village. And that was one of my favorite like lines, like that conversation I really liked, because like there is this one of my least favorite things about history is trying to judge historical figures by modern lenses.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the knowledge that we have now. And while in the past, in the church, there have been a lot of abuses, and to be fair, in the present in the church, there have been a lot of abuses.
Right. Sure.
A lot of times those small village like judges and canons and bishops who have been like labeled as bad people were literally just doing what they could to save their entire village. And a lot of times we find out that like these people that were being killed as witches just actually had a disease, but like if the disease was spreading and they had to make the decision, do we kill these 3 women who are making everyone sick, or do we let our whole village die to be fair? And like there's a lot of that in history that we don't look at.
But then there's also what's her name that's a child that keeps saying people are witches and her dad just kills everyone.
Well, yes, but that was also and that was bad and not good, and also an allegory for the way that the United States treated McCarthyism and communism, and it's all kinds of fucked up. But anyway, yeah. No, there are those people who make a bad name for the people like this canon who are literally just trying to do the best to make their village survive. And it's not like they're like there's an imaginary parasitic demon who's making everyone witches. They're straight up a fucking demon walking into their village being like, give me people. I don't like the canon, but I understand him better than I think most people would. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair.
So I really liked this conversation because I was like, no, he's just like a person who's trying his fucking best. It's just not good enough because he won't listen
to the more very kind about it.
Right. He's not kind about it, and he's not listening to the people who are more educated than him. But to be fair, he doesn't actually know that they're more educated than him. So like, what would you do? What would you do in that situation?
Right. And I would say actions alone don't make him a terrible person because, like you're saying, he is like trying to keep his village alive. But like, he could be nicer about it. He could be a little more compassionate, and that would
And like later when he tells Simon that if Simon doesn't stop asking questions, he's going to be the next sacrifice. Then you're like, okay, well, fuck. Then we're like, okay, fuck off. But like up until this point, you're like, he's just kind of a dick about doing the right thing for his people. So the SG team then like tries to talk to Simon about how bad the canon is, and he like refuses to let them talk because he doesn't want to hear it, because like he's clearly like a monk and the canon would be like his leader, and he's like, no, you can't do that. And Jack is like, ask Simon where their gear is, and he says that he'll get it for them if they stay and help him, because Simon just really does not want Mary to become a sacrifice. Like that is his thing. And Sam tries to explain what to do with the gate, and Simon's like, I can't go near the gate. I'm not allowed to, so I can't do that. And that was tragic. But then another man
can't even look at it. I was like,
yeah. But to be fair, I don't know. And in that moment, I don't know if the canon also doesn't look at it. Like, you know what I mean? Like that could just be.
Yeah.
So
like is he the only one allowed and he's the one who has to interfere with everything? Or is he like also not allowed and he's just still in charge? Like, yeah,
because like the demon has said no one can do that. Like what is that? So another man comes outside and says he needs Simon because they're ready to do the trade planning ritual to save Mary. And they're like, dude, that's going to kill her. And he's like, honestly, it might kill her, but I'd rather she die here with us being prayed over than being chosen to be a sacrifice and given to the devil.
Yeah.
And so Daniel obviously is like, we have to stay and help. And Jack is not about that life. He's like, because earlier in the episode, Jack was like, remind me next time I want to help somebody to shoot me.
And then he says, remind me.
He says later, he's like, next time Jack wants to help, or Daniel wants to help somebody, shoot him.
Shoot him. Yeah.
So Daniel's like, if we don't help her, Teal'c will have died for nothing. And then that's when Sam and Jack are like, well, fuck it. Okay, I guess we'll stay. So they follow Simon, and of course, Sam and Jack follow him. And then Daniel tells Simon and Mary he'll take them with him through the gate rather than let them do the trade planning ritual. So they agree, and Mary's fever has broken. And so like she and Simon like now fully believe them that like they actually just know things about healing that they don't, because her fever actually did break. Right. But while all of this is happening, the women who are prepping Teal for his Christian burial are like praying over him and wrapping him in oil and cloth. And then Teal suddenly sits up. And that was the funniest moment of the entire episode. And this is where I got angry. Because the symbolism of it being all women and wrapping him and then him sitting up was so clearly Jesus resurrecting. And then they did not take it that way. I wanted so badly for them to be like, Jesus has come back. He's not the devil.
Right.
And they didn't take it that way. And I was like, you put all that symbolism in there for fucking nothing.
So much symbolism in this episode that doesn't matter.
So angry that they did not think Teal'c was Jesus.
I think that's why I was so upset about the Mary and Simon thing.
Yeah,
because like literally so much that just no one followed.
Right. That honestly, that's when I mean, I wasn't enjoying the episode really at this point anyway. But when Teal'c sat up and they didn't assume that he was Jesus, I was like, nope, they don't know what they're talking about. They only read like a couple of the Bible stories to do this.
They read the Spark Notes version.
So when Teal'c shows up to the rest of the team that he's alive, Jack acts like the biggest fucking tool ever. This is my favorite Jack moment.
Oh my god.
He grabs Teal'c's stomach and is like, "Thank you, Junior."
Like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. What is this episode?
And so they explain that Teal'c went into Kelmorine and that the Goa'uld symbiote used the oxygen in the water to keep Teal'c alive. And then Sam is like, Simon, I promise there's like actually a logical explanation for this. And the canon is like, yes, the logical explanation is that you are all evil. And I'm like, that's not logic.
That's not how logic works.
No. And he's like, you are the first 4 that will be sacrificed to the Unas, and also Mary because she is still sick. Ha ha ha. So Simon starts to freak out, and then the canon is like, do not talk back to me. So he doesn't.
Whatever. It's very much like The Village. I got a lot of The Village vibes, but like without being that great. So
Simon doesn't want to leave her, but he feels that he has to. And in the morning, once they're all tied up there, he's like still standing, kind of watching them because he doesn't know what to do. And then the Unas arrives to take them. And Jack confronts the Unas and says some dumb shit because that's what Jack does. And the Unas is like, you guys are not of this world. And he's like, no shit, Sherlock.
Yeah, sure thing.
And so then Simon and the other guy are like, well, if they were servants of Satan, like, why would they be resistant? Like, they must not be lying. Oh God, we have all the way fucked up. Then the SG team escapes from the Unas by throwing themselves down a cliff.
Daniel's like, we're about to take a tumble, so just tuck and roll. What did he say though? He
Yeah.
said like scrunch up your body or something and just roll
Yeah,
with
he's
it.
like, yeah, basically. So like Jack looks at the cliff and then he like kind of looks behind him and makes eye contact with Daniel, and then Daniel just like does not even turn around and look at Mary, and he's like, curl up your body and hope for the best because we are about to. And then they all five just jump off the cliff at the same time, which honestly, impressive.
Impressive and the right decision, but like, what is going on?
Right. And so then they're hiding through the woods. And then we go back to the village where this is where the canon tells Simon that if he doesn't stop being nosy, he'll be the next sacrifice. Um, the Unas catches up to SG because of course he does, but like so does Simon with Teal'c's
Right.
staff.
Yeah, who came out of like nowhere. Yeah,
Right. Simon shoots the Unas with the staff like 3 times, but it isn't dead yet. And then the Unas like knocks him out and chases him. And while he's running away, the staff is just laying on the ground. And so the SG team like stretches the chains as much as they can to get the staff and set themselves free. And they follow everyone. The canon has also apparently followed Simon, and now we've got like a Benny Hill sketch in the woods, but not funny. Um, and so the Unas catches up and like knocks Simon out, who's just like standing there, like being like, "Fuck you" to the Unas. And then SG team gets there, and the Unas is apparently already dead. And the canon is like, "I finally see the truth." Like he was like David and Goliath. It was so beautiful. I should have believed you. And they're like, "Give us the ring." And he's like, "Okay." And he's like, "I agree to bury the gate and let you guys leave. It'll all be fine." And then they go back to the gate and Sam starts to dial. And then she's like, "Yeah, about that. We can't go home because the gold left the Unas and is for sure in the cannon's body." And they're like, "Are you sure?" She's like, "Yeah,
for sure, yes.
for sure." The gold cannon like tries to attack them and Jack just like kills him.
Yeah, like no
Just
lead up. It was
and then Simon says a prayer for the cannon's soul, and then it's like, "Okay, we agree that to bury the gate so that no one will come back for us." And then the episode ends rather unclimactically.
as was the entire episode.
Um, I do have some trivia.
Great, love trivia.
Um, First of all, some connections. Jack imitates Dr. Evil from Austin Powers in the first
Saw
scene for
that.
some reason.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know what's happening here. This
Yeah,
is
no.
ridiculous, but okay.
Yeah.
And it was like so like subtle that I was like, I
What?
feel like Richard Dean Anderson was just like, I'm gonna just do this and see what happens. And then they were like, yeah, fine, we'll leave it in there.
Yeah.
Like,
Um, the shot of the prisoners being taken away, walking down the cliff, like Unas and the 5 prisoners on the chain,
mhm.
is actually a reference to a 1957 film called The Seventh Seal, where the devil is taking people down to hell. So that one's
Also
pretty,
fascinating.
yeah, right. Fascinating.
We should have watched that instead of this.
Um, and in the end, when they go home, Sam dials 9 symbols on the DHD. The game only has 7, so I don't know why she did that.
Maybe
Even
she
in
lost
the
count while she was doing it.
even in the one episode where we go to a different galaxy, that's still only 8.
It's
So
8, yeah.
so I don't know why that happened. Um, this trivia confused me because I think something in it might be a spoiler, but I'm not 100% sure. Um, because the trivia piece said that these people were taken through the Antarctic gate in the Middle Ages, which I'm only thinking that we know is the Antarctic gate because the Egyptian gate was buried already at that point. And not that they actually said in the episode that it was an Antarctic gate. And I also don't remember them ever talking about it later in the series. So I think it's only saying it's the Antarctic gate because it
It's like a
couldn't be
general
the.
knowledge.
Yeah, because like the timeline wouldn't work
Hmm.
out any other way. That's but I also don't know if that's a spoiler and I'm just not remembering a conversation that happens later
Okay.
in the series.
Well, that's vague enough that I probably wouldn't remember anyways if it comes up later.
Correct.
So,
But the reason it's important is because the prayer of Saint Michael that the canon recites during when he is deciding who is going to be sacrificed, or before he does the test on Teal'c, was a prayer that was written by Pope Leo the 13th in 1886. So he couldn't know it. It would not be possible for him to say that prayer if he was taken
right.
in the 1300s.
Yeah, I just, as you were saying that, I was like, okay. And you're like, yeah, that would be, I was like, nope, you're right. That
Yeah,
1300s is
yeah.
before the 1800s.
And then David McNally, who plays Simon, is not who I talked about for this episode because
I've heard that name.
yes, because he played Hano in the episode Korai, so he was already one of our main guest stars. He is one of we're in the 90s where people just kept showing up as different characters.
Right, absolutely.
And then my favorite trivia fact, and the one that I was like, oh, we will talk about that, tray panning. So the tray
I like the
panning.
casual way you refer to tray panning.
Well, here's the thing. So tray panning, which is the idea of putting a hole in the skull to release evil spirits or diseases or anything, was not only a common practice in the Dark Ages, it went much, much, much farther. No. It went much farther in the past than that.
Oh, you went backwards, I went forwards.
I went backwards, yes, backwards. Like to the cavemen when the only sharp tools that they had were rocks. Now, there is evidence in skeletons all the way going back to the like Neolithic period of people using that as a method of breaking the skull. And in almost every skeleton that exists that they have found that there is evidence of healing of the bone because tray panning only killed 10% of the people who it happened to. That
Really?
was not a death sentence. The same way as you can break your skull now and it doesn't actually kill you. If they were to dig too deep into and hit the brain, then people would die. But the actual hole in the skull did not kill 90% of the people that it was done to. And it was a method of medicine for thousands of years. So the fact that
so thankful for Tylenol. Like, could you imagine if that was still a practice today?
Right. But also the fact that Daniel, this ridiculous cultural expert, assumed that it was a method of like sure
Death sentence. Yeah.
Was a clear case of someone not studying before they put that in the episode. Because tray panning was not likely to kill people at all.
Wow.
There was a lot of things that they did in the Middle Ages as medicine, like
that killed people.
Right. Like the one thing Daniel said is like it wasn't called the Dark Ages for nothing. Facts.
Right.
Like leeching still freaks me the fuck out.
Oh. Still used?
Still freaks me the fuck out. I know.
Yeah, don't love it. Still a practice.
But tray panning was actually one of the least weird medical practices they did in the Dark Ages. Because there's still times there's still times now in medicine where the correct answer is to crack the skull to like release swelling in the brain.
Right.
Like that is like a legitimate medical practice. And people would assume that the difference is that we have better medical like technology, but actually even when they were just using a pointed rock, people were doing it correctly. It probably fucking hurt like a bitch back then when you didn't have anesthesia.
Can't imagine it was enjoyable.
No. The pain level is horrifying, but it did not kill people.
You probably wished you were dead though.
Oh, for sure. I mean, sometimes I get period cramps that make me wish I was dead. Putting a hole in my skull, not something I'm looking forward to. Despite saying like that's what I'd like. Like I say things that like sometimes kids will give me things. I'll be like, yeah, I needed that. Like I needed a hole in the head.
Sure.
But actually, apparently that would not kill me. So maybe not the worst thing I've ever said.
Yep, for sure, for sure. It just would make you incredibly uncomfortable and in pain.
Absolutely. No, despite the fact that this episode was interesting and didn't have a lot of character, who would you like to
Oh my
punch?
God. I had forgotten how to do episodes. I forgot about this. I forgot about our spirituality. I just like don't even know what's happening today. I'm gonna punch so many people. Ugh, all of them, every one of them. I guess. I mean, the Unas,
That's fair.
Sokar.
I'm gonna punch the cannon because like he probably
Yeah,
could have made things better.
yeah, I think
Like
so. I think
like the
so.
Unas was an Unas and he was inhabited by gold. Not really his fault for being a dick. The cannon, kind of his fault for being a dick.
Well, that's why I said like and Sokar maybe like
Yeah.
because definitely at fault.
Yeah. What about your MVP?
No one. I hated everyone. I guess Mary. She had the correct reaction at all times
Correct.
and was
That's
just trying to
that's
stay alive.
that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go with Simon because like he
Mm-hmm.
tried.
Yeah,
No one on the SG team gets to be MVP because they were written
absolutely
so
not.
badly.
Absolutely.
Also, Sam was absolutely fucking useless in this episode.
She was not in this episode. Like,
There were times when I genuinely was like, is this one of the times where she couldn't be there for filming and they just like dubbed her dialogue in the background because she was fucking useless.
right, yeah. But like, she was physically there.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is so unnecessary. Why is this a thing?
Um, Hopefully next week is better. I mean,
It's gotta be.
it's
This is
got
the
to be. To
lowest,
be
right?
fair, this is the lowest rated of the season, so like I guess everything is better. But sometimes things that are high rated we don't think are better. So
Right.
like there's always that. Um,
But at least maybe
but
something will happen. Some
yeah,
emotion, something.
for forward motion in the show. What?
Yeah.
What?
Look, the dream.
The dream. Oh. Oh.
Are you looking at the next episode?
Yeah.
Okay, I was like, what's left? We did it all.
No, I'm looking at the next episode. It is not very high rated, but it is interesting.
Okay.
Oh, also, my other fun fact was that this episode came out on Friday the 13th and it was about demons. And that was why when last week when I gave my, or last on Thursday when I gave my weird like spoiler for the next episode, but it's not really a spoiler because we haven't watched it yet. And I was like, it is more related to horror movies than you think. It was because it was an episode about exorcisms on Friday the 13th. It wasn't a good episode, but
No.
that
And
was,
these are themes of horror films, I guess.
yeah. So,
But, you know,
but if you want to stay tuned to this week's Thriller Thursday,
you do. You
you
do.
you do because we are wrapping up Bates Motel. It is the final episode of the show. So if you have any questions about this or anything else that we're doing, you can email us at deathandaliens@gmail.com. You can follow us on all of the social media at Death and Aliens. You can follow me at EMKAY_superstar.
And you can follow me at CE Cloud 13.
And we will see you on Thursday for our Thriller Thursday episode.
I'm so excited. Bye.
Bye.